Dere? Dere? Cool, great. I've been also practicing this for 2 years now. Yeah, welcome. I'm talking, like Aurelio before me, about... The mic's off? Nope. Is the mic on? Okay, cool. Yeah. Mic's on. He made this, so I think I'm good. Yeah, like Aurelio, I'm also talking about JavaScript build pipeline, or JavaScript automation, or build automation with JavaScript. My talk will just give you a brief overview. I don't know if Aurelio did the two before, but JavaScript, or the JavaScript community, is really good at reinventing things other software engineers did 20 years ago. The same was with all the build tooling that we have right now, or with tooling in general. Usually I thought, I'm a web developer, I'm a front-end developer. The tools or the languages that I use are mainly HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But as Aurelio said before, there are much more tools out there. It's just like something like that, Sass CoffeeScript. You have to use AngularJS as a framework, or AmberJS, or whatnot. There are so many tools out there, and it's really hard to keep an overview of those, or to maintain those, to know each and every tool you have to work with. Some things that you would have to do constantly is things like uglifying, minifying your code. Was it in your talk, Aurelio? I think so. Minification. Yeah, so who was here? In the last talk, minification, like packing everything together in a small bundle, is really important for creating web applications or websites. So back in 2010, when I joined this agency, I've been working for 5 years, we had one tool to minify HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And it kind of looked like this. It was an input field on a website, and we pasted all our CSS in there, pressed the button, got a minified CSS, pushed it to a web server. So now think of fast release cycles, like, oh, there was a bug. Go to your source files, change those, go back to the website, put it in the input field, click on compile, download the file. Most likely you forget something because you're working with lots of files, and the more you're going to use this, the more you end up like this. So, or kind of like yesterday night, I don't know. So what we did rather soon was that we used some tool called Ant. Who in here knows what Ant is? Java developers, everybody? Yeah, cool. Who used Ant? Who still uses Ant? Poor sod, I'm so sorry for you. Yeah, we know, like you, we had lots of Ant experience, so we thought, okay, maybe try Ant. And there were some plugins out there from Google and from Yahoo, the YUI tools, Google Closure Compiler, who could do all the minification stuff and concatenation stuff. So we did set up an Ant file doing all the things for our websites. And I want to show you a quick preview. So that's it. It goes on. It still goes on. It still goes on. Totally normal. So it was about 1,530 lines of code, just doing the basic stuff. We are not talking about having all the other plugins for frameworks, or I don't know. And from the original Antrax, in the main package, we used 4. All the other stuff you see here is from extensions, either from Ant extensions or from plugins that we used for minification and all things. So while this got our job done, we weren't that happy with it. So we thought, and some other people thought that too, that maybe Java isn't the right tool for that. Maybe being on the Java platform is not what we want. That's always a winner, I know. So maybe we should stick to the language we write our software with, and to the language our main tools are written, because uglify.js is written in JavaScript. CSS preprocessor is written in JavaScript. All the other tools are written in JavaScript. And Ben Ullman had the same thought. So I'm sure I'm usually asking the question, who in here has heard of Grunt? Yeah, who in here has been in the last session? Okay, yeah, so the last session was all about Grunt. And he had the idea, okay, JavaScript should be the way we are going to build our stuff. So he created Grunt as a JavaScript build tool. And it really started a boom, because everybody knew, all right, I can do builds in JavaScript now. It's easy to configure. You have basically some sort of JSON-ish configuration that you adapt and that you change. And it's really easy to write new plugins. You've seen a lot from Aurelio's talk. There are lots of good plugins out there. They're easy to configure, easy to install. And it's familiar to us. For a JavaScript developer, it's really easy to get into it because it's just the thing we are writing our applications with anyway. But Grunt has some issues. Grunt files can get long because of all the configuration. You don't end up Ant-like long, but still rather long. It's rather verbose. Also, Grunt tasks can get really, really slow. That is mostly due to the fact that there are lots of reads and writes. So if you have a pipeline of many build steps, like reading stuff, doing something, writing it, and then you have to read this intermediate result again and do another task on it. Think of uglifying all your JavaScript files and then concatenating them. You would read your JavaScript files, uglify them, save them, and then read those uglified files and concatenate them and save the result again. So lots of reads and writes on the hard disk, which can be really, really slow. And there's an unmanageable horde of plugins out there. We are talking 5,000 plugins. And there's this funny little story that I was searching for a plugin that did some search and replace inside a file based on irregular expressions. And I ended up with 10 plugins, and none of those plugins did what I wanted, namely replacing stuff inside, even if they were named something grunt replace. Even more funny is that the actual replacing stuff could be done with the copy plugin. So when you copy stuff in grunt, you can replace contents inside, which kind of doesn't make sense in terms of does it belong to the copy task? So it's a jungle out there, and it's really hard to keep an overview. That's why talks like Aurelio's are so important, because he really points you to the good plugins. Lots of those issues have been addressed in a tool that's called Gulp. I'm sorry. And in a really good way. But before we are going to dive into Gulp, and I'm going to show you lots of Gulp today, just have a quick view what else is out there, because there's so much in terms of build tools already on the market. React is totally in love with Webpack. Webpack is a JavaScript module bundler, and React is all about modules and all about bundling. So use this for if you're going to do React. Ember.js digs Broccoli.js, and for a long time I didn't know why, until I found out, that's the Ember logo, that's the Broccoli logo, that it's really cute if you think about the hamster eating the broccoli. It's just totally amazing. I'm a huge Ember fan, by the way. So every community seems to have its preference. And if you are in using some framework out there, be it Angular or Ember or React or whatever, stick to the build tools that the community is using there, because you save yourself lots of headaches. You can also be kind of, like we talked earlier, a purist and just write everything in NPM. But for all the other things, I think Gulp is a really, really good option. And I'm going to show you why. But before we start, a short disclaimer. I'm not only wearing a Gulp t-shirt, I also occasionally and very rarely contribute to Gulp. It's just like 2 pull requests that I made in the last 2 months. And I'm writing a book on Gulp. So, and you can get stuff off with this code, advertising. So I'm kind of biased here. So, of course, I'm telling you Gulp is the best because I can sell books then. The cool thing is with Gulp, you have a really easy to use API. You have one call to read files and one call to write files. So with Gulp source, you select files that you want to read from the file system. With Gulp test, you write files that you want to save to the file system. This is everything you would have to know if you're doing just a basic copy task. If you want to copy files, select them with Gulp source and save them with Gulp test. And now that's the cool part. Starting with Gulp source, everything is inside the memory. And then you can pipe your files through any plugin that you like. So we have all the contents in memory, pipe them through uglified, they get uglified, they are still in memory, no writing there, and we pipe them through another task, like concatenation, and then save them, makes it really fast and really powerful. You can chain lots of plugins on top of each other, and you end up with some build. That's what I call build pipeline, where you pipe your files through from one source to a destination. And that's everything you need to know about gulp. That's how you do gulp. Select stuff, write stuff. There's a little more to it, but not actually that much. The whole gulp API is basically just a thin layer that points to a multitude of other software doing the whole work. So if you check the gulp.js project on GitHub, you see that every property the gulp API has is basically just forwarding to some other software that it's loading. And gulp usually consists of 3 parts: a file watcher, a streaming file system, and the task manager. And everything there on one slide is like this. So that's the task we're going to define. Here is the build pipeline with the streaming file system. And down there, we have some watcher that triggers stuff. So that's all of the API that you get in gulp. And the cool thing is, underneath those API calls is some other software that can be easily replaced by gulp. What the gulp vendors did with the transition from gulp 3 to gulp 4 was basically exchanging everything that was under the hood. So they had Vinyl is still the same. That's the virtual file system they're dealing with, which keeps all the files in memory for the transformations. It stayed the same, but it went 1.0. The Undertaker is the new task system for gulp 4. It was called Orchestrator before, so they just plugged one out, plugged the other in. And the file watcher was Gaze before, and it's now Chokidar, which that's my contribution. The one. So gulp is composable by nature. You not only with all the plugins you can stack in a pipe, but also by having this rather open system of technologies that are wrapped under the gulp layer. And with being that composable, we can expand gulp by adding features from other tools and technologies to it, and the other way around. So who has heard from Browserify? Quick show of hands, yeah. It's also some sort of module system. You can basically write JavaScript like you would do for Node.js and require stuff, but still run it in the browser. So that's kind of handy. And what Browserify does, it actually uses streams. So you have a stream-based module bundle system called Browserify, and you have gulp streams. So you have streams on both sides, and they kind of look like the same. One is dealing with text, the other one is dealing with files. So why not combine them? And that's actually something you can do. This code here creates a new Browserify module or bundle. We are bundling it here, and starting from there, we have a stream that we can save. And with this source call, that's Vinyl source stream, that's a plugin around the gulp ecosystem, we can create a file object that is understood by gulp. So starting from here, we are not in the Browserify stream world anymore, but in the gulp stream world. And we can save it like we would do with any other JavaScript. So that's really powerful. And that's also the preferred way how those things should be done in gulp. If you can integrate the tool itself, you don't need a plugin. Actually, all the Browserify plugins for gulp are blacklisted. Gulp features a blacklist that tells you which plugins not to use because there is a better way to do so. And this goes also the other way around. This is a very simple Express.js server, which just serves a static site down there. And if the server can't find a URL in that static site, it does a request to some other server and forwards the result, some kind of proxy. Yeah, you see that this request also creates a stream. We are going to pipe it out to the HTTP response. We can now use gulp to create some sort of static cache. We use the same stream we had and piped out through HTTP, and save it with some gulp plugins on the hard drive. And then we add another directory to our Express.js stack, and we can serve the static cache. So starting from that on, every request gets faster and faster. I'm sure if there are Node.js developers in here, they will throw my code here because it's definitely not the way to do it. But it's handy because I know gulp, I know how to handle files with gulp, and that's what I wanted to do there. I wanted to handle files. I wanted to save it on some disk, so it was really convenient for me. It has a good API, and I understood it easily, and also my coworkers understood it easily because it's rather readable. So if you can have a stream, you can basically do anything with gulp. So start thinking streams. If everything the gulp needs is a stream of files to be piped from a source to a destination, we have so much possibilities how to define build pipelines. This is a very basic pipeline for transforming CoffeeScript. Is anybody in here using CoffeeScript? Why? No, that's something for later, yeah. Or any other, it's any other language for the better. I don't want to be judgmental here. TypeScript, Rebel, whatnot. It's, you know, you have some coffee files, you're compiling them to JavaScript, uglifying them, the same thing that we had previously. Now you have a build pipeline for just JavaScript without the CoffeeScript part. Put right next to the other pipeline, you see that a lot of things are the same. So why not just use the same pipeline again and again? Not only that, most of the time you also want to have CoffeeScript compiled and JavaScript compiled, but still bundled to one bundle in the end. So what if we could reuse parts of that stream? Let's take a look at the stream as it was before. Just CoffeeScript, then uglification, then concatenation. And now we are merging it with another source. So here we have still the source of CoffeeScript files. We are compiling it to JavaScript. And then we have another source of JavaScript files, and we are merging them with a tool called merge2 to one stream, and then pipe it through the thing that they have in common. The merge2 plugin is actually a model that is used throughout the Node.js ecosystem. It's a Node.js streaming module, not some gulp plugin or gulp extra software. It's something that is used by Node.js. And that's the beauty of gulp. Since streams are such an integral part of Node and such an integral part of gulp, you have already some tools available and patterns available that you can use in both systems. Gulp 4 actually has a better way of handling such cases. You can create some sort of pass-through stream. So gulp source is not only readable, but also writable. Under the hood, it does the same. It just merges the stream that you started from with the stream that you are creating here. But it's a more convenient way of doing it. So we now created one bundle of CoffeeScript files and JavaScript files. What if you want to create multiple bundles? Like, what if you want to use the same pipeline for a multitude of applications, maybe for all applications? What you could do would be creating some sort of configuration. It's not only configuration; it's more like a list of stuff we want to have. Like we want to have an application that is located in the app1 folder. We have an application that is located in the app2 folder, and we want to create the bundle that is named like that. So those are variable parts that we have here, like the things that are usually in the parameters of the gulp stream. We can use this array and map it to a series of streams. So that's also just basic array functionality. We have here this array that we had defined earlier. And for each one of those, we create one stream with the variable parts in place of the other parts. So we end up, from an array of configurations, we end up with an array of streams. And we merge those streams and save them again. So it's still the same pipeline that we defined earlier. It's actually the same pipeline that we used throughout the whole examples here. And we can use it for a multitude of applications. Not only that, it does not only work with JavaScript, of course. What we created in our company was like a static site generator where you have blog posts and many other things like author pages and an index page and stuff like that. And we just defined one pipeline and could create any output that we wanted with just the same thing, because the process was the same, just the input formats switched. So, so far we have learned how to define a process using everything stream related, just to avoid different configurations of our build pipeline. We skimmed the data away from the actual build process. We were like, okay, let's think about the process, not about the data. And made the pipeline flexible enough to deal with all the inputs that we could have. And we can take this for of skimming data a little further with incremental builds. So think of writing a JavaScript application, and with every save of your files, you want to process your code and create the bundle. It turns out that some tasks, like uglify, take a lot of time. And I'm talking seconds here. So every time you save, you want to uglify all the things? I'm not sure. So this takes quite some time. And actually, you want to speed it up a little bit, because you're just saving one file and changing one file while compiling everything again. So what we actually want to have is having a filter of some sort that filters the files that have been changed, do the performance-heavy stuff with those files, and then add them back to the original stream and do the stuff that is related to any of those files. We have the build pipeline we had early on, uglification, concatenation. Uglification is the performance-heavy part. So this is our basic stream. And we now create some sort of cache. We pipe our whole file stream through a cache, and the cache checks first, is this file new or not? If it's new, it gets piped through to the next step. And if it's not a new file, has this file been changed? And if this file has been changed, it also gets through the pipe. So starting from here, we have just the files that have been changed. So far so good, but here at the concatenation step, we do want to have the original files back. So we have to use some sort of some Gulp plugin called Remember, where we can retrieve all the files that are in the cache again back to the stream, and we create a bundle like we did before. One thing to keep in mind here: the cache really caches all the files, and if you delete one file on your file system, it's still in the cache. So you have to do some cache invalidation here. And both plugins, both Gulp Cached and Gulp Remember, have an API for that. With Gulp 4, there's even a better way if you just want to skim files and not add them back to the stream. That's a linting task. That's like Aurelia did before. It just checks if our JavaScript code is of good quality. And we don't want to hint all the files again and again. So with Gulp 4, we just can add a parameter that's called since. And it takes a timestamp, maybe the timestamp of the last run of this very task. So here it says every time this task is going to be run, you're going to do a timestamp check if those files have been changed since the last run of this very task. And that's even more performant than the caching part, because files are not even read here, where with previous example, you have to read them at least once before you can do the checks. And here they aren't even read. So you get some speed up here too. Both approaches, however, come with a huge downside. You need to have Gulp running, so you need to have some sort of watch task. And every time you turn off Gulp, all the information on last runs or caches is gone. So it's all in memory. It's not something that you have available throughout, so keep that in mind. One thing though, there's another plugin that can help you with that, mainly if you just want to copy files or want to copy optimized files. This is a task that optimizes images, so I'm reading all the images and run them through ImageMin and save them again. And I don't want to do that for every image again and again and again, because sometimes just a few images have changed. So what I can do is use a task or a plugin called gulp newer that compares the timestamps between the source directory and the destination directory. And this goes even if gulp terminates and you turn gulp off and boot it up again, since it's all based on disk timestamps, it does it again and again and again. This, however, works just for files that you don't bundle. So if you have to have the same file names in both directories. And you also have to put the destination directory as parameter, because that's the directory you compare it to. All right, so when architecting gulp build pipelines, one very, very important step is to separate the process from the content you want to stream. So first, think about the basic pipeline and how that would look like. As you have seen, we just used the same pipeline over and over and over again. It was just like uglification, concatenation. So we implemented that, and then we modified it based on the data we want to stream through. So then think about how your data looks like and how your input and output should behave. And then use those plugins to adapt your stream and change your data accordingly. And with that, my half an hour is over. I have 10 minutes left for questions, but I want to thank you for your attention. Okay. You can ask now, or if you're shy, hit me up on Twitter. Any questions right now? Yeah?
Well, as you know, Grunt will eventually implement pipelines. Do you see that change will let Grunt regain some?
That's a very good question. You know, it was just about a year ago where I heard the same thing, and I was like, okay, cool. If Grunt does the same with pipelining and with in-memory computation and not saving everything, I would give Grunt still a go. But there hasn't been anything since yet. And the thing is with Grunt, they have lots of good ideas, and they also created some sort of committee doing all the task definition stuff, where they brought people from all the build systems together on one table to talk about it, which is great. But since then, nothing has happened. And I'm not sure if it will happen. Grunt is now in 0.4. something, and has been there for about 1.5 years. So I'm not sure. If it will implement this, I'm sure it will regain some popularity, but I'm not sure if they're going to implement it. I also don't have any clue about the roadmap right now. It's very concluded from the for outsiders, I think. But yeah, there is a way to integrate gulp into Grunt. I guess it's called Grunt Gulp or Gulp Grunt. I don't know. You also can. I did it once in the troll build file that I did. It was just var grunt is require gulp, where you can actually configure stuff like you're used to from Grunt, but run a pipeline underneath. So you can still implement a pipeline that is performant, that does the things that you want to do. But use the configuration parts that Grunt is so good for, because you can configure things, and that's very easy for lots of people to understand and to read. Anything else? You know, I'm the guy that is between you and your lunch break, so. Yeah.
Well, as you also mentioned, there's, I would say, chaos in the JavaScript tooling world.
Yeah, totally.
Do you see, will it somehow converge into less chaos, few tools for one job?
Yeah, very good question. One thing that I've seen in the last months or years is that communities tend to be very selective of their tools, and with every new framework and every new community that comes, there comes a new build tool. And I'm sure if there's next year, 2016, there will be, I don't know, a bazillion other frameworks, and they will each one of them will feature a new tool. So my advice still is use the tools that your community is using. And if you're using that, you're fine with the tool, with the framework so far. For everything else, it's really tough to have an overview. Maybe you just can adapt the same thing that you have been using with your framework of choice. And if that's not possible, you might just use that one that is of your taste. So, Gulp, for instance. But yeah, I think that there will be more build tools in the future, definitely, and not fewer. And the others won't go away that soon. I hear the jQuery community is using Grunt still heavily, and the AngularJS community is using Gulp heavily, and Angular 2 is now using, I think, Broccoli for the time being, but they want to move away from it to something totally else. So, yeah. So no really for that. I'm sorry. Yeah, if you want to read stuff on all those tooling issues, I have a blog called Front End Technology Talk blog, FET blog. It's just about tooling anymore. I don't write about front-end technologies anymore. It's just tooling, Gulp, Grunt, whatever. And there's also some samples on GitHub that you can check out from what has been in this talk. Right, so thank you very much for your attention.